Hello my audience. So my computer broke and I'm reading again, and I'm reading a lot, and I'm reading Dan Simmons, Black Hills. And this is one of his older books. It's from something like 2013, was it? And it's a book about a shaman and an Indian shaman, so an American Indian shaman. And this is a book about, altered states of consciousness, maybe. It's a very disjointed book, that's what I can say about it. The Hyperion series, it's much better, and this one is not sci-fi at all. I feel there's some mystical elements and spiritual elements to this, but it's more about, the West and just the barrenness of it, and it's a kind of a story that reflects that, but the plot is quite weak and the character is quite unfleshed out, and he's kind of losing his mojo over here. And it felt very depressing to read this book. Like in the start, he has these books that are very depressing to read, but then there's something happens, and you kind of just turn the pages. I don't know what it is with this writer, but he can do it again and again and again, that you read these books through, at least for me. And I have been, now suffering in my knees, some pain. So, and this was a writer from my past that I discovered like years and years ago. I remember I was in therapy when I read the first Hyperion book, and I started writing my own science fiction back then, and I was living without the internet, so it kind of matches to what I'm going through right now. And Black Hills. What can I say about this book is that the abominable book about climbing the Mount Everest, I love that book, but this is kind of like, you can see he's fleshing out some ideas over here, and he's trying to make his writing kind of work. And I ordered the Olympus book, and I ordered also the flashback book, because they were sci-fi, and I like sci-fi more. I would hope that this guy would have written more sci-fi. I haven't read his horror books. In the past I was quite into horror. I read a lot of horror books in the past, but then I just got quite kind of off track with fiction in general. But now I have kind of rekindled my joy for fiction, and this is one of those writers that I really like. I'm gonna tell you a story that how I became conscious of this writer. It's a very interesting story. When I was young, I went to Helsinki with my mother, and there was this used bookstore there, and on the shelf I was this tall, well, I wasn't full grown up, I was I was in the primary school, and I saw this book, like high up on the shelf, and it was the Hyperion. It was the Hyperion, the first installment of Hyperion, and that cover kind of imprinted in my mind. And then when I was going through therapy when I was like 20 years old. Like 20 years old or 21. And now I'm 27. I started reading, and I was looking for best books, best science fiction books. And I saw that cover, and I was like, that's the book I saw in that fucking used bookstore. I'm going to get that. And it was amazing, he hasn't been able to top that book ever in his career, but Abominable, it came very close. It was amazing book, but the Hyperion is just fucking life changing, And this guy, he was in his career, he's still alive, I think, and he's supposed to come out with a book, but he has been on a hiatus for like 10 years, at this point, or yeah, like 9 years he hasn't released a book. And considering what he told in that book about Sherlock Holmes was that he was going through a lot of health difficulties. I felt he himself, you know, and that was kind of his last kind of thing in his career. And you can just there's this one line in this book where the character says that he wants to become a novelist. I also want to become a novelist, but I have noticed that I love being a YouTuber also. So I don't know if I will ever be able to kind of, connect those two. And I'm not sure if I will ever be able to become, so to say, a novelist. Even though I write so much and I have a thing going on for me. But, this guy, I appreciate him a lot because he's a real master and he has been pulling out that book that you read through and that you kind of get hooked to so many times, So I hope that those two books I'm getting now Flashback and Olympus, I hope those will be good. They're sci-fi too, so I really feel that this guy's strong point is science fiction, but he can write other stuff, and I really appreciate that about, any other artist, that an artist tries all kinds of styles. You have seen on my YouTube channel, like lately, I have tried rap and I have tried metal and I have tried, in my past I drew and I painted and I have done some, acting stuff here on YouTube, and I have done a couple of things on the stage also at this point. I have done modeling for drawing, I have tried to touch each one of the arts. I have not done sculpture, but in the past I used to do some model kits also. So yeah, I have done a lot of stuff. I have been into anime and of course I know all about video game stuff, but I have never been in the creative process of that, of course. But who knows what my life will lead into in the years to come. But now my computer broke, I have been, for reals, I have been, quite down. I have even thought about suicide, this YouTube thing is so fucking important for me that, yeah, when I can't do it, I go into this depressed state. But I have been doing some poetry videos, and now that the knees hurt, it's a fucking shitty situation when your computer breaks on top of that, not being able to move so properly. So, and it's the death of the winter at the moment, so it's kind of like everything's fucking breaking. My portable recorder broke, and now my computer broke, and I don't know what will break next. But on top of that, I'm quite broke. So I have been reading, just books, and this one I got and couple of, was it like a week ago, I read it fast, this one is for those writers that you can read very fast, and now is the perfect time to go through these books. So there's a book list over here on the first page, and the next book I'm going to read by this guy named Drude, and that's also a historical book, and he wrote a couple of these crime stories called Hard Case and Hard Freeze, and I don't know about those. Then there was this book called Darwin's Blade, and it was about traffic accidents, and then was a book called Winter Haunting, and that was a book about a horror story, and the Hyperion was his fourth book. And then there's this book called Hollow Man. I think it's still from the 90s or just the early 2000s. I think I'm going to read that one. That interests me. But there are a couple of these books that I'm not really interested, but I think I will go through all of his, books. And then the 2007 book, The Terror, it was about, sailing and a horror story too, or a kind of, thriller. So he has gone into thriller, crime stories, and like detective stories and science fiction, and he hasn't done like straight fantasy ever. This one was labeled as fantasy, but this is not fantasy, you know, it's just fiction. So it's kind of a historical thing, and as I said, you know, it's disjointed. It's one of those books that you can see that his mind was going in so many directions, and he was kind of, you know, I felt that he was a little bit distracted writing this book. And the older books, you know, I'm just going to say that this internet era has really, you know, affected like novelists, maybe in a bad way. But yeah, he had a very, you know, fruitful career, and I don't know how much, you know, money he got from writing, but he probably, you know, it's usually the way that artists don't become, you know, hugely rich, at least, you know, when you only have, you know, one thing going on. So this is it, Black Hills. Thanks for watching this review, and the next one will be the Druid book, and I hope that that was at least ranked better, but usually it is the way that rankings, you know, they don't really, well, they tell something about those books. And these are you know, this was published by Quarsus. So the Druid book I have, that's not published by this same book publisher. And what I felt about this this edition of the book is that it's a very nice size, and there are pocket books that are smaller than this, and the books that I got now, I believe that they are going to be kind of smaller editions than this, or I'm not sure. But you see how we get the creasing, you know, on the back. It's not so bad on this, and usually it is with this kind of books that this plasticky type of stuff, you know, it kind of dislodges, you know, from here. But with the smaller pocket books, you know, there's necessarily not this thing at all. And you know, those you read those like once, and you know, the back is just, you know, like that. They can be read like I bet like 20 times probably before they fall apart. But yeah, this is one of those writers that I have kept all my editions. I'm not going to give this away or donate or sell them ever, because, you know, I just think that this writer is a genius, because when I read this writer, you know, stuff starts to happen in my life, like creative stuff. Yeah. He's a literary artist. Yeah. He took it to that level. So thanks for watching this story. Black Hills, not his best book, and I am going to read the Druid next, and then I'm going to get those two books. The two books, what were they called? Olympus and... Hey, in this book list, you know, there's the flashback book. Yeah, it was released later, you know, the flashback. It was like in the 2010s, you know. It was released something like that. It's one of his newest books. And I believe that this guy, you know, he has great ideas about future. And it's great to read science fiction. You know, I think science fiction is that genre that frees your mind. Yeah.